may not respond well to a feelings-based approach. She revealed other methods and programs are also being used to meet the needs of different children.
Ways to teach the children how to maybe breathe, to center themselves. So there are certain techniques that you can do to ground, to one of the terms is to feel grounded. How to facilitate moments of laughter and breaks and play, to use music, to use art, which as Jamaicans, we respond very well to music. We respond very well to dance. We respond to art. So there's using all these different approaches to be multisensory, to appeal to different learning styles.
Carla Ramdeen, CVM News.
Classes are currently in session at McLeod High School in Darniston, Westmoreland. Despite ongoing challenges with electricity at the institution, the school remains without power due to its location. However, Energy Minister Darrell Vaz says the JPS is actively working on an alternative solution to address the issue and ensure reliable electricity supply for the school. The minister has given assurances that the matter is being treated with urgency, as access to electricity is critical to teaching, learning, and the overall functioning of the institution.
So what JPS has done is to come up with another solution, a hydro solution similar to what they did in Treasure Beach, which they'll be putting here within the next commissioning within the next 2 weeks, which will then power Darliston and the immediate surrounding areas, and then they'll work their way into other communities while working on the major repairs coming up the hill. So basically, in essence, if this solution was not possible, and the intervention of the government with the $150 million loan, Darliston could probably have gotten back light towards the end of this year. So as a result of the collaboration, they'll have water next week because the Roaring River NWC station will be powered by the 15th. The hydro station that is being put up, work will start in the next few days and hope to commission it within the next 2 weeks. Once it is commissioned, all persons in Darliston ready for power will be able to get power.
And it's time now for a break. Stay with us. More when we come back.
My name is Fredrine Simpson, Public Relations Officer.
And I am Monique Bowen, Media Student.
On behalf of our Distinction College family, we would like to thank the entire Jamaica for making us the #1 City and Guilds ABE and CSEC private training provider in Jamaica.
We offer over 70 vocational, professional, and academic programs.
Start online and face-to-face classes in
geriatric, pediatric, psychiatric, and practical nursing, early childhood, childcare, phlebotomy, pharmacy, and medical lab technician,
housekeeping, food preparation, waitering, bartending, travel tourism, plumbing, motor vehicle electrical installation, AC, cosmetology, security,
customer service receptionist, supervisory, project, HR, and business management, CSEC, CAPE, and many more.
Registered for any program and get City and Girls Math and English classes for free.
Visit us in Kingston, Spanish Town, St. Elizabeth, Ocho Rios.
Call us 356-4167.
Happy holidays and a prosperous.
Welcome back to CVM News at noon. Now, since the start of 2026, Jamaica has recorded 17 fatal police shootings, the latest involving a farmer in St. Catherine. Now, these incidents have reignited national concern about the use of lethal force by members of the security forces. Joining us now via Zoom is Executive Director for Jamaicans of Justice, McLeod Jackson, an organization that viewers would know is at the forefront of police accountability and human rights advocacy. Welcome, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you so much for having me, and happy Friday to your viewers.
So as I mentioned earlier, since the start of the year, we've seen 17 fatal police shootings. From your analysis, does this point to a troubling pattern in policing, or are these isolated incidents being misinterpreted?
It's a troubling pattern, and I think we all should demand scrutiny of these numbers. Why do I say it's a troubling pattern? Last year, the country ended with 311 fatal shootings involving members of the security forces. I have to put in context that that 311 is a 65% increase compared to 2024, which ended with 189. That 311 represents only 2 times before that Jamaica recorded over 300 fatalities in recent independent history involving fatal shootings by members of the police force since we started recording these things. So in 2010, for example, we had over 300, wherein some 70 odd was contributed by the Tivoli incursion. The last time we saw that last high number was in 1984, where we recorded 354. So if we ended on a high in 2025 with 311, let's put in context that 17 that has since been recorded in the first 8 days of January. When you look at 2025 up to January 8, the country had recorded only 6. And remember, I stated earlier that we ended on a historic high as well in 2025. So if we have more than doubled what was in 2025, which was a high year, we have to ask ourselves, what will happen at the end of 2026? So the numbers are alarming, but we don't look at the numbers alone, We look at the patterns and the trends within these numbers. What does that suggest? There are allegations where family members and witnesses have discounted or contradicted the police account of events. When you look at the planned operations contributing to some 50% of these fatalities, you have to raise an eyebrow. When you look at the fact there is no body-worn cameras either being worn or activated, you have to raise an eyebrow. When you look at allegations from the spouses, the girlfriends of men who have been killed, that they were asked to remove themselves a few minutes from the room and then shortly after gunfire was heard, you have to raise an eyebrow. You also have to raise an eyebrow when you look at circumstances like Jamar Farkinson and Romario Sterling, where CCTV footage suggested that these men were complying with police orders, hands in the air, and then shortly after they were killed. So these kinds of trends and incidents warrants irregularities flagged by Indicom must raise an eyebrow and must demand scrutiny.
So Ms. Jackson, we've seen where many Jamaicans feel there's little accountability when fatal shootings occur. In your view, are existing mechanisms strong enough to hold officers responsible when, wrongdoing is alleged?
We do have Indicom, and by the way, Indicom was established in 2010. Following this type of advocacy that we're doing. So Indicom is there. But we have to look at the reality of, while Indicom is doing its good work, if it is that you have fatal shootings and dead man tells no tales, the only other witness is the dead person because there's no body camera. So we're saying that the body cameras being worn would certainly add to verify the police account of events. And if a witness was telling the lie on the police officer, then you pull your body-worn camera footage and say, no, I saw it go. I was under attack.
And Ms. Jackson, our viewers are currently looking at a graphic which shows the number of fatal shootings we've had over the last 3 years. You mentioned Indicom earlier, so we've seen where they've launched investigations into the incidents or the latest incidents that we've had. Based on past cases, how confident, though, should the public be in terms of the effectiveness and independence of these investigations?
Indicom does good work, but the reality is that Indicom is also facing resource challenges that will impact the length of the time that these investigations will go. For example, forensic reports, ballistics reports, and the fact that in some of these incidents you have no independent witness account to the actual shooting that occurred. So for Indicom to advance its investigations a bit quicker and for matters to proceed on the strength of evidence, you need the body cameras, and the government need to invest much more in CCTV cameras across the island.
So what effect do repeated fatal encounters, though, like these, between the police and civilians have as it relates to public trust in law enforcement, particularly in rural and farming communities?
Well, let me focus on research that we have definitely done. within communities that have historically low trust levels in the state. For example, some of the inner city communities in Kingston and some of the communities out Westmoreland and so on. The people are happy that murder rate is down. I think we collectively are, but they are concerned that you have the increased fatal shootings. In fact, we interviewed a gentleman who said, listen, I train my child, I socialize my child to understand that when you see police, you know to keep yourself in order, you know to respect the police, which you should. But what he was talking about moved beyond respect to more recognizing that the police may very well be the enemy and therefore you have to be careful. So that low trust may very well evolve. And I think we have to be careful, which is why the body cameras are important to ensure that the trust in the officers are maintained and strengthened. And the police, they're doing good work with their community safety and security branch, the domestic violence intervention centers to maintain that trust. But we are fearful that these high increase in fatal shootings may very well be counterproductive and undermine the trust, especially without the body cameras aiding in support. We're just calling for that to be done, with the police commissioner giving us an update, because he made a statement on September 29 on a radar program that the body cameras are nearing completion and they should be in the island within 4 weeks. And he said he was being conservative. September 29, 4 weeks have passed from October ending. We're now January 9 in 2026. I think the JCF owes us an explanation on where we are.
So, Ms. Jackson, we have just about 30 seconds before we have to wrap. But what, outside of the body-worn cameras, what other concrete steps would JFJ like to see implemented immediately to reduce the fatal encounters that we're seeing?
Well, Indicom said it. Ensure that your warrants can withstand scrutiny. They're properly signed. They are authorized within current legislation. And we are to look a little bit more on how planned operations are utilized, and the officers that are leading those planned operations ought to be senior officers, and we need to ensure that the senior officers who are deployed to planned operations do not have any human rights stain to his or her history.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. That was Executive Director for JFJ, McLeod Jackson. Thanks as always, Ms. Jackson, for sharing with us.